Hello, my name is Janet Travers, and I am with the San Diego Writers and Editors Guild. We are here to talk about our new anthology, and we have one of our authors here. Hi, David Walls. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We're here to talk about your story. What is the name of the story you've published in the anthology?
If it wasn't for bad luck and paper towels, that's the name of my story.
Which goes along with the theme of good luck with that,
Yes.
which is the theme of the anthology. What inspired you to write the story?
What inspired me to write the story was when the last anthology came out. I believe it was either last one or the one before. There was a meeting at the library in Mission Valley. My wife was there, Audrey, of course. And I listened to several people reading their stories. And I was thinking, you know what? I do like to write, and I could write something like this too. So I thought about the story like for a whole year. And then I started looking at it. And that's what really inspired me. That and some of my own personal experiences.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite short story that you've written and why?
I would be partial to my story that I currently wrote for the anthology.
Oh, good. The one that you wrote.
Yeah, currently right now, I have many stories, but right now, yeah, pretty much.
How do you like being a member of the San Diego Writers and Editors Guild?
Well, I like it a lot. Now it's to the point where now I can try to give some support to the Writers Guild any way I can. I think it's been great. It's been really good for my wife, too. Audrey Hughes, like being member for the last several years.
Oh, you're both in it.
Yes, my wife, Audrey, in fact, she wrote a story too, so she was in it too.
Well, that's very cool.
Yeah.
First, I've heard of a couple both being in it. That's pretty nice. Do you remember the first story you ever wrote?
First story I ever wrote was, well, the first thing I ever wrote was when I was in the sixth grade, and I wrote a poem about my dad. And I remember I was in a private school and the head of the school, not that so much that he read it to the entire school. So it's kind of like I won like a writing prize. So that was the first thing I ever wrote. And then later on, when I got to be older, I wrote a small script because I was going to make, or because I used to be in acting and stuff. So I thought, I'm going to make a film. I'm going to be an actor in the film. And so I wrote this thing. It was called XTY, the story of a bar. And then somebody got interested in it. So I blew it into like a full blown movie script. And it's like 160, 70 pages. And I wrote that back in the 1990s. So that was the first big story I ever wrote with, many stories to follow after that.
That's a long script you got there.
Yeah, it was great.
So, when did you first start writing?
Wrote, but I was never really like a voracious writer or anything in high school and junior high school and stuff like that. I got more interested in it when I got to be older, like in my 30s, and especially in my 40s.
How many unpublished or half written books do you have?
I probably have several. I own two copyrights, which are my Martin's Games movie script I mentioned that I wrote back in 1990. And then I have the XTY, the story of a bar. They're both sci-fi fictions, and those are my copyrights. And then I wrote another one that's not quite finished. It's called Murder on Fifth Island, and then several other short stories.
What genre do you write in most often?
Genre probably more mystery kind of, and then the sci-fi thing too, which is what Martin's Game is all about.
You have three. You do sci-fi, children's books, and you write scripts.
Oh, and also my son and I are working on a book together because my son's an artist. We came up with the story. It's a children's book, and it's like in production right now. He's a master artist, so he's going to do all the illustrations for me. That's going to be based on my daughter when she was growing up. I wrote the outline for it, and he's working on the art right now.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm really happy about that.
That's a beautiful thing. How about you try to be more original or to deliver to readers what they want?
I like to be more original, like Martin's Game, the movie. That was back when Windows was like Windows 3.1. There's a robotics in it. It was bringing mechanics into life, like vending machines or whatever. I mean, come alive and having them have personalities, a little bit of androids and stuff like that. It was like way before, maybe stuff that came out now. Almost like a precursor to that.
Do you plot your stories or are you more of a pants story?
I would say both. You're talking about the seat of your pants writing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, they kind of do both. When you're writing stories, sometimes the story will take on its own dimension. Like, okay, I'm going to write about this. This is going to happen. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, the story's going in a different direction. That would probably be seat of your pants.
Yeah.
Even though you're trying to adhere to the plot.
It goes in another direction organically.
Yes, pretty much. Just like when I did the story that I wrote for the anthology, I rewrote that probably 6 or 7 times.
Are you from San Diego? Go Padres, by the way.
Yeah, it's something nice, very nice. I love it. Actually, I was born in Colorado, but I've been in San Diego most of my life. I've been here over 50 years.
You think most of your stories are set in San Diego?
Well, I did have one that I've been working on. It's called Murder on Fiesta Island. So that was based on Fiesta Island. You know,
Right,
I'm
right.
still working on that one. That's a murder mystery one. The Martin's Game, that's just a sci-fi where that takes place up in LA.
Were they playing Over the Line on Fiesta Island by any chance?
I never played it. I went there a couple times, but I never played it just to see what's happening. Did you?
Yeah, I did in college.
Oh, wonderful.
It's like bocce ball. You barely have to do anything. You just drink and you just party and throw the ball around in, 10 feet or something. It was a lot of fun.
It
Anyway,
was pretty crazy.
thinking about everything you've written, who is your favorite character and why?
Right now, I would have to say probably Mr. Walls would be my favorite character right now, only because that's my new story. Actually, well, one character that I really, really like would be back from the story of Martin's Game that I wrote. And that would be Barbie. And she was kind of like an android and she was in love with like a vending machine.
Could you repeat that?
Okay, so one of my favorite characters was a character that I called Barbie. And she was
Just
kind of like a blonde lady. And she was in love with this vending machine because the vending machine was alive. We're talking about AI kind of thing, but this is back in 1990 when I wrote this. You know, so the two, she was working in a bar, you know, kind of as a waitress, and she was in love with this vending machine that sold cigarettes and stuff like that. But the cigarette machine had a personality. I don't know, something just really touched me about that character that I wrote.
I'm in awe. I think that's really great. In love with the vending machine that sells cigarettes because
Yeah, and that's funny because, like I said, it was pre AI.
do you empathize with any of the characters in your books, fictional or not, or wish you were more like them?
I have to say that the story of Mr. Revolves, I kind of based that kind of like on me, sort of a little bit. So yeah, I can certainly emphasize with that character. And I really like the character of Martin's Game of Martin because one of the parts of the story is acting. Martin was an actor, and, you know, it was up in Hollywood, and he was just like this Shakespearean guy, big guy, happy, you know, hero kind of guy, which I'm not really like that. I'm more kind of an introvert. So yeah, I would really emphasize that character.
When you're finished writing a story, do you feel energized or exhausted? You feel good?
Later, guys. Yeah, I don't feel like, oh no, we're on to the next thing, you know.
Do you write every day?
No, I don't. I should. You know, I've come to a point now in my life where I've been working the same job for 22 years. I'm going to retire soon. I want to start getting back into it and just make that like my habit. I don't write as much as I should. I used to write a lot. I come home and I would write and stuff like that. Just not too much lately.
Are you a feeler or a thinker?
Excuse me, a feeler. I'm a thinker.
Thinkers.
I'm probably a feeler. I'm more empathetic. If I'm standing next to somebody and they're like really sad, I'll pick up on it. It's like that. Or if something has happened to somebody and they're like grieving or something, and I'm in the same room with them, I soak it in. I just have to go out and get some fresh air because that's just the kind of person I am. Very empathetic. I can be a thinker too.
What is the greatest joy of writing for you?
You know, the greatest joy of writing for me is creating a character. And what I really like when I'm writing something is I like when I can get a reaction out of another person. My wife, who worked at the Blind Center, she had a lady there. I used to write stuff when I was in this writing class years ago. And I would say, okay, I'm going to see if I can make somebody sad, so if I can get her to cry. I would let her read the stories. And she would like, oh, no, that's really sad. I feel good about myself because I was able to make her feel what I wanted her to feel about the character.
I love it. I think I'm going to write something that's going to make that lady cry.
That's me though. If I can make somebody cry and I get an emotional reaction, or I can make them laugh, or I can make them angry, then I feel like I've done my job. When you're creating a character and you can get in and let them see how a person feels, like I'm reading a book and I feel like, oh, that person really made me angry, or she really made me happy, or whatever. Yeah, that's a really good writing. I try to do that, but it is what it is. I do my best.
So you're a reader. What do you like to read? Fiction, nonfiction?
I like science fiction. Mostly I read a lot of this. I'm sure you know who Matt Coyle is. Matt Coyle, the writer.
Yeah.
I've read all of his books. And Paul Delacy, I really love his stories too. And I'm a huge fan of Mike Connolly too, you know, the Bosch stories. And also Lincoln Childs, I read a lot of that stuff lately. But I do love a good science fiction. Like I've read like Hail Mary, which is coming up in popularity. I've read that one probably 3 times, I think. That's kind of genre I like. Sci-fi and murder mysteries. Romance novels, yeah, not so much.
I hear you, brother. So what are you working on next?
What I'm working on right now is I'm working on the book. It's called Timothy, and it's a story about a juxtaposition of a rhinoceros, I guess you could say. I wrote the story. My son, who's a fabulous artist, he's looking at the outlook in that.
So that's the name of the book you're working on. What
It's
is it called?
Timothy. Yes, it's the name of the book, and it's based on a little girl and her relationship with a rhinoceros. The little girl is based on my daughter. It's a thing I've been thinking about for many years. I was talking to my son. I said, "Let's do the thing." He said, "Dad, yeah, I'll do the art."
What are we doing with this script now? This big long script, is it being looked at in LA?
What happened with that script was a friend of mine who was a director. He tried everything he could to get it sold. We almost had it sold, and was going to get like 40 grand for it. And like, yay, money, money. It kind of fell through. Life came along, and then we had children, and we just kind of went along with that for a while. And we still have it, and I'm going to rewrite it soon. It needs some work. Like I said, it was written back in 1990.
Yeah.
When I was 30. It's all kind of based on everything that's going on now, which is kind of ironic.
You guys have like reading time together since you're both writers and readers, you and Audrey?
No, we're both huge avid audiobook fans. So I'll go through probably 3 books a week, and she'll probably do 4 books a week, maybe.
That's amazing. That's all the time.
I work outside, so all day long I'll have a book in my ear. And if it's a book that I really like, because something hasn't popped up that I wanted to purchase on audible.com, I'll just listen to something I've listened to like 3 times before. Like Hail Mary,
Well, it's wonderful though. Do you consider it reading?
Well, I consider it reading. A lot of people say, "Oh, audiobooks, that's not reading," but I consider it reading, really. And it's even better because there's so many different wonderful voice actors out there, like Scott Brick and some other ones that I really listen to. So, hey, but to me, it's reading. Yes, definitely.
Did the two of you read the same books?
Pretty much. I mean, a lot of the books we both read that are the same, and some of them we don't.
If that was someone who their partner or whatever reads the same books, and then you could be talking about it at night. I think it's great.
Well, yeah, no, we do that sometimes too. Like we'll talk about Hail Mary or whatever. We'll say, "Get to this part of the book. Do you know what happened?" It's funny because I have a friend of mine at work who reads a lot too. So we always have like the same kind of discussions.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for joining us. It's been my pleasure. You're delightful to talk to. And again, this is David Walls. And looking forward to seeing the actual publication of your story.
I'm excited. My story's been published.
Okay. What do you think, Tamara?
I think you guys are good. So I have to ask though, do you like Hail Mary better than The Martian?
You want my honest answer?
Yes.
I loved Hail Mary. The Martian, yeah, not so much.
You know why I didn't like Hail Mary? I thought it was such a pat ending. I was just like, it was like a love story ending when he stays there with his little Martian, with his little alien buddy. It was a real letdown for me because I loved The Martian because I liked the science in it. I thought he did an amazing job researching the science. It is amazing how often fiction turns out to be fact 20 years before it becomes fact. Fiction writers are really good at predicting the future. It was fun to listen to you because you read all the same books I read. Which reminds me, I should probably turn the recording